Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you back to Slangin The Bizkit podcast. This is going to be episode 17 of the new Slangin The Bizkit podcast. My name is Travis Ridgen. I play in the Federal Prospects Hockey League for the Motor City Rockers, starting right bench for these Rockers. On the other end of this podcast is Winnipeg radio legend, my co-host from the Energy 106 studio in downtown, just outside of downtown Winnipeg, Mr. Dave Wheeler. How are you, my friend?
Actually, we're in the beautiful Polo Park area now, and I am always at your disposal, sir. It's better than shoveling snow, so I'm happy to be in studio with you as always.
You know what's crazy? This is probably the first time, because we're getting snow here just outside of Detroit here in Fraser as well.
You're supposed to be getting feet of snow. Not just inches, feet.
Well, this is the first time in 2 years I've had to deal with snow like this early. Obviously, like living in Sweden, western Sweden, specifically on the west coast, no snow at all. And then when they did have snow, the whole western side of the country shut down. So now that we're getting snow here in Detroit, people are just used to it. People are humming along on their ways to work and on to practice every morning.
Man, it's something that always baffles me. You know, that's always that first couple of snowfalls where there are certain people that go, hey, I'm used to this. It's been 6 months, and this is what we do. And there's other people that are like, oh, my God, I've never seen this before. What am I doing? If you've lived here long enough, you deal.
You know, we were having a team breakfast the other day on a road trip in Binghamton, and I was sitting across from our head coach. Obviously, we have the whole table of 10, 12 guys, and coach was sitting right across from me, so he had no choice but to talk to me, unfortunately. But we ended up talking about the weather and block heaters, and how when he was scouting for NCAA Division I teams and whatnot, he would drive down from Detroit or from the Michigan area all the way up to Winnipeg. And people would be recommending, hey, you better have a block heater on. You better have a block heater ready or your car's not going to start tomorrow. And be like, what is a block heater? And it's amazing how many people don't actually understand, like, a block heater is so critical in the prairies areas when it gets so freezing cold, your car won't start. Otherwise, when, over here, you don't really need it.
Well, it's funny you say that because I had a guy that was on my show for a period of time. He played in the NFL. He was a Purdue graduate, but he's from the Lansing, Michigan area. And I kind of thought, well, you're from Lansing, Michigan. Obviously, you get winter and that kind of stuff. And then he had to ask me. He actually made a comment one time when he was in the studio. Kelly Butler is his name, by the way. And he said, man, he goes, I'm just really impressed with Canada. Because, all the electric vehicles here, all the vehicles are plugged in. I'm just so impressed by it. You guys are way far ahead. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, everyone's, like, when they pull into a parking, they plug in their vehicle. I'm like, dude, that's a block heater. And he's like, what's a block heater? I'm like, it keeps your battery warm and it keeps all of your fluids warm and whatnot. And it lets your vehicle, so your vehicle doesn't seize up. He's like, oh, we don't have that in Michigan.
You also got to point out the fact, too, that dude had, like, the deepest voice on the planet.
Yeah, KB, Kelly Butler. Yeah. He was in the lower register for sure. Large human man. And, I kind of thought that Detroit, because I guess I don't have them in Toronto either, or in the Ottawa area. Like anything East Coast Canada really doesn't deal with block heaters as much as the prairies. I think you're right. I think it's more kind of from Northern Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and not even Southern Alberta, but Northern Alberta.
Yeah, I think when you get around like the Thunder Bay area and then all the way up to, I would say Calgary. I think after you get past Calgary, it gets a little bit like less block heater required areas. But you absolutely got to have those during the winter. Also, KB, like you mentioned, dude's 6'9", a monster of a man.
For those that are still trying to wrap their head around what this is, just think of it as a electric blanket for your engine in the wintertime. That's the best way I can describe it.
Otherwise, she doesn't start.
Yeah, exactly. All of your stuff freezes up, and it just becomes a nightmare, and your day's ruined. But yeah, most places in the prairies, when you pull into a public parking area, will have an outlet there, and you'll see people driving around, and they will wrap their extension cords around their rear view mirrors or what it may be, because you got to be able to plug it in the front of the grill from your vehicle and then into the outlet. It's a process.
Another thing too, like the whole process of like doing road trips and whatnot, like on the team buses, we haven't had any issues yet of major breakdowns. Obviously, heard lots of stories in the Feds, buses breaking down, when they come more up north, maybe not so much in Columbus, Georgia or Mississippi, but when they come up north, they break down in the snow and, the fellows are pushing the back end of the bus. But we have not had, you imagine that. One of the guys actually mentioned that the other day, if we have a bus breakdown and all the rookies are obviously the back pushing and, the vets are helping steer. And then there's me in the back with the drone. Could you guys try to get it to the lighting and just hold it there? I'm trying to capture the moment here. We had a like when we checked in the hotel for a road trip, we just went on a road trip to Binghamton this past weekend, a little 10, 11 hour trip down to New York from Michigan. And it was a long trip. We ended up going, we leave at midnight. So I guess technically Thursday night, Friday morning, whatever side you want to swing on, but it's midnight. We leave, the bus goes, we got to Binghamton around 11. Morning skate, I think at like 11:15. And then we ripped for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then got off the ice, headed to for Olive Garden for a pregame meal, then head to the hotel. And by that time, like, the boys were tired. Like, we just had a morning skate, not the greatest sleep in the bus. I'll leave it at that. And we're lining up at the front. Coach is handing out hotel keys, assigning roommates. And shout out to my roommate for this trip, Derek McKenna or Makama, sorry. And D-Rock, him and I are partners or roommates for the trip. And one of the guys says, "Hey, D-Rock, just be careful. Trav might be flying the drone in the middle of your nap this afternoon." And I thought to myself, can you imagine that? We're just having a nap. It's all quiet. The blinds are shut, and you just hear the drone take off. And it's like, Trav, what are you doing? I'm trying to capture the moment. Act natural.
You guys push. I'm going to take care of all of the documentation on this. By the way, for those who don't know, if you hear the name Binghamton, it's about probably an hour south of Syracuse, so we're looking like just south of Lake Ontario. You're looking about maybe 2 hours-ish southeast of Buffalo. So you got your Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, Binghamton. You're just north of the Pennsylvania-New York border. That's kind of the area of Bingo. Now, Bingo's had a history of a lot of hockey teams, minor hockey league teams, American Hockey League. From what I understand, they when they ended up moving that franchise, they literally just ghosted completely.
Yeah, that's true. So the Binghamton Black Bears was the team we're playing. They're a newer expansion team. They just came into the league last year. It's crazy that the amount of turnover that the league has for 2 teams fold this year and 3 open up next year, then 3 fold next year, then 2. It's just the way minor pro is. It's not just the Fed. It's everywhere.
Well, the American League's been going through that for decades.
The only staples I've noticed, I mean, the Moose obviously just came back, but the Toronto Marlies and the Hershey Bears are always there year in, year out. They haven't moved in like 20 years.
No, that's not true. The Marlies, I mean, a lot of teams have had movement. Like you said, the Houston Aeros are probably one of the longest standing ones, and I think since they left, I think Houston may have a good shot at maybe being the landing spot for the Phoenix Coyotes when Gary Bettman finally decides to pull the plug on that experiment.
Yeah, that's not happening anytime soon. You'll see the Titanic rise above the ocean floor before the time you see that. But with Binghamton, like you just mentioned, Dave, they had the AHL team. They were the Binghamton, I believe, Devils and then Senators. It might have been the other way around. I'm not 100% sure. But they had the American League team up 2 years ago before the COV, the word we can't say on YouTube or podcasts these days. But when the team left and they were gone, they just abandoned everything. They had this world-class arena for playing AHL games. The camera setup, the camera crews, everything. They just, see you later, done. Kind of like our boy Sleepy Joe pulling out of Afghanistan. That's what happened basically with the Binghamton Devils. I don't know, maybe that might be a bad comparison.
People hanging onto the bus on the way out. Wait for me!
That's literally what happened with the Binghamton Devils, and now they left everything there. I could be wrong, Dave, if you want to fact check this. I think they have a capacity for about 6,000 people, might be 7,000 people in the arena. And that's what the Binghamton Black Bears play. And we just had our road trip there. I got to say, quite possibly the best ice I've ever skated on. First class. Arenas, the facilities was great. Everything was, I had no complaints at all.
You're looking at about 7,200.
7,200. And they had a sellout on Friday night when we played there. And then Saturday, I think, was around 5,000. So like 5,000 people. And now keeping in mind, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. So they announced the attendance for both games on the Jumbotron, I think end of the second period, beginning of the third period. Let's be honest, they're probably smudging the numbers just a little bit. Like they're going to smudge the numbers. But it was electric. It was probably the best crowd that I've seen in the Fed to date. I mean, it's a very tight arena too, so I think that helps the fact that the crowd is on top of you, so it's louder, it's more electric. I did question at one point if they were pumping in like fake noise into the arena, because I was like, how is it so loud with it being so small? But it was electric in there, and it was.
For the record, your arena, the Big Boy Arena, holds 8 at capacity. I don't know if that's for hockey or if it's for concerts, but
I think that might be 8,000 people with all 4 arenas combined.
Oh, okay.
Because we have 4 rinks within the facility.
Okay. All right, that makes a little more sense. Okay. 3,400.
for the big boy.
Yeah, for the big boy, for you guys, where you guys play 3,400. So you're looking about double the size.
Yeah, and I think we fill with I think about 30%. So yeah, we're getting about 1,900 to 1,100 per game, which is still pretty good.
What were you getting in Sweden last year? It was friends and family only, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was friends and family. I think there was friends and family to a max of 50 people. I think, but obviously there was more than 50 people because there was no enforcement of the rules, shall we say. But yeah, crazy to play in front of such an electric atmosphere. I wasn't even playing. I was on the bench. I was getting heckled by some people in the stands. I'll tell you this, it was actually kind of funny. So on the Saturday night game, Binghamton had a promotion that was if we score 4 goals or more, everybody in the arena gets a free cheeseburger from Burger King. And I'm like, okay, this is a pretty high-flying offensive team. Like 4 goals is like a pretty low, like, you know what I mean? Like, you probably should have set it at 6 if they wanted to, try not to give out the free cheeseburgers. And so they score 4 goals the 4th goal in the 3rd period. And the security guard who's like monitoring me comes over to me because there's not enough room on the bench for me to sit there with the team. So I have to sit in the tunnel kind of like with the crowd. So I'm sitting there in a chair and I'm just surrounded by the crowd. So they have security to help me in case someone pops off. And a security guy comes over to me. He's like, hey, I got coupons for the free cheeseburgers. You want some? I was like, how many you got? He's got about 200 coupons for these free cheeseburgers. He just hands them all over to me. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do with them? I know the fellow's going to appreciate this after. So I stick them in my pants. I got about 200 coupons. And then I didn't, think anything of it. The next 15 minutes plays out. We go to overtime, scoreless, go to a shootout. We win. All the boys jump the bench. We're all celebrating. They open up the door for me to go join the team, and we're celebrating. And I come back into the room, and as we're walking into the room, all the coupons fly out of my pants. And there's like 200 coupons on the floor. And the guy's like, Trav, what's that? And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. They gave us coupons for free cheeseburgers. And then one of the guys asked, like, how long do you have that in your pants? I was like, about, I don't know, beginning of the 3rd period. And then it clicked that while we were celebrating on the ice, I didn't drop the coupons. The coupons stayed in my pants the whole time we were celebrating and high-fiving and skating around and all that kind of stuff.
That's amazing. Well, who is the, since we're talking about Bingo and the Senators when they were there, who was the goaltender that had cheeseburgers thrown at him there for a while?
Oh, Andrew Hammond, the hamburger.
That's it. Andrew Hammond, the hamburger. That's it. Yeah, I mean, you're one step away from that. Had you been dropping coupons out of your ass when you're jumping out on the ice, that just would have been epic.
Well, it was Burger King cheeseburgers, not McDonald's cheeseburgers. Also, a little fun fact for you. When my goalie coach, Pascal Villano, when he was on the podcast, I think for episode 7, it might have been episode 8, about 2 months ago, Andrew Hammond sent him a text right after and said, hey, thanks for the kind words. It was awesome. Really enjoyed the podcast. And also from another friend, I heard that apparently, so McDonald's offered Andrew Hammond free cheeseburgers for life. With him being the whole Hamburglar. They had the Hamburglar on his mask, Ronald McDonald, Grimace, all that kind of stuff. And so they gave him free cheeseburgers for life. And now life is obviously 25 years, so I guess in 20 years from now that expires. He doesn't eat McDonald's. He hates McDonald's. No interest at all having McDonald's. Yeah, he hasn't used it apparently.
Wow. Interesting. You never look a gift horse in the mouth for the record, just so you know. Speaking of goaltenders, I want to get on a bit of a question period with you regarding goaltenders. Now, I'm going to set this up because I know you want to get into a promotional plug here right away, which I think is a great spot for it. But I'm going to preface this by saying I don't know what it is about what they saw, like what my coaching staff saw in me over the years, but I always ended up getting roomed with the goaltenders. I don't know if I'm a good, pseudo psychologist or whatnot, but you guys are all neurotic. I think you can admit that you're a little different. You're like, the lonely kicker type situation. There's something really, really something wrong with all of you. So I got a few questions regarding goaltenders, but I know you want to get into a plug here real quick.
Yes, absolutely. Just a quick little reminder to everybody watching or listening. The podcast is available on YouTube as a video version. If you're on YouTube, hello, thank you. Pleasure to be with you here on this awesome Sunday afternoon. Hopefully you're watching when the podcast goes live. If you're on Apple or Spotify, you're in the car. Maybe I'm in your headphones at the gym. It's also a privilege to be with you here with Dave. I want to remind you that if you're on Spotify or Apple, maybe leave a little 5-star review. Appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Also, this podcast is powered by the amazing team at Sheath Underwear. Sheath Underwear is game-changing. Dave is a recent adapter of Sheath Underwear. You want to tell them why, Dave?
Well, listen, I was a Sax guy forever. I really, really was. And I had an argument with a friend of mine's wife recently, and we were talking about how society takes better care of men or women. And I said, we have spent decades upon decades upon decades trying to figure out the bra It's only within the last 10 to 15 years that we finally thought, hey, maybe we should take care of the boys a little bit better. And so we finally got some underwear instead of this being, here's a piece of cloth to put between your junk and your jeans. Here's boxers. You'll love it. It's great. You can box with them. We finally got to a point where we're finally starting to navigate how to better take care of that situation, the package down there. And believe me when I tell you, this is all compartmentalized. This isn't just the things on the side. This takes care of the north, south, east, west. Everything is where it should be. If you're the type of human being who likes to sit down with their legs crossed or legs forward or wherever it may be, you're going to be covered. If you like jogging, if you like whatever it is, this is going to make sure that everything is exactly where you want it to be.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If you have an east-west problem, like me, maybe you have a north-south problem, like Dave. You're going to have to read between the lines on that one because we can't actually tell you what that means. But the team at Sheath Underwear have you covered. So they have what they call the dual pouch. And the dual pouch is a segregated compartment. So the biggest problem I think men have, myself included, is that your stuff, your twig and your biscuits, stick to the side of your leg. Hot summer day, if you're at the gym, whatever the case may be, especially like on the ice. I wish they had Sheath for being on the ice. That'd be great if they could do like a compression short, but it sticks to the side of your leg. And with the dual pouch, there's a compartment for your twig, there's a compartment for your biscuits. You have to physically put them in there. They won't obviously go in there, but you put the twig in the one compartment, you put the biscuit basket in the other, and they physically cannot touch. It is physically impossible for them to touch or to touch the side of your leg. Everything's aerated, it breathes, it's compartmentalized, and to be honest with you, it feels fantastic. And I got a care package the other day here in Motor City, and I was nice enough to give Big Sexy a pair because that man needs a pair. He's got an absolute horn on him. And Big Sexy was even saying, I don't know if I should stand that, but Big Sexy, if you're watching the vlog, Elias Thompson, a beautiful man. He got a pair of Sheath underwear. Said, yeah, best underwear I've ever had. Great for compartmentalizing. He loves it. I think I might have given him the leopard print one just because it was him. But Sheath underwear. If you want to use the code BIZKIT69, that's going to be a code BIZKIT69. It's going to get you 20% off, sheathunderwear.com. There's a link in the video description. If you want to click on that, that'll take you right to the Sheath website. You just enter the code at checkout. If you're on the Apple or Spotify version, there's a link in the show notes on the Apple or Spotify or Google Podcast platform you listen on. Take you right there. You put in that code, BIZKIT69, 20% off, and you could be feeling just as good as Big Sexy, Dave, and I.
Great stocking stuffers as we're just over a month out from Christmas, by the way. And so make sure Santa Claus brings a sack full of stuff for your sack.
It kind of is like stuffing a stocking. Essentially, is a stocking stuffer within your underwear is kind of what it is, if we're going to break it down, really.
All right, well, let me get into this because you're a goaltender, and as I mentioned here a few minutes ago, every single road trip, stuck with the goalie. When first time I left home at 15 years old and stayed with a billet, stayed with a goaltender. It's just, I don't know why. I was never a goaltender, but I was that stay-at-home defenseman, take care of the crease, take care of the goaltender, and I think that may have been part of it. But I think that there was also a connection somewhere, somehow, where I needed to better understand goaltenders, and I'm totally. I think I've got you. I think I've got y'all figured out better than most people do. I don't think I've got you completely figured out, but you got to keep in mind it's a very lonely position. For those that don't know, it's a very lonely position, regardless if you're in the cage or if you're on the bench opening up the door. You are ignored until the point where the puck gets to you. So there's times where I think to myself, and we've seen, goaltenders like Braden Holtby who will sit there and we saw him during the Stanley Cup Finals when the Caps won the Cup, and he sits there and he just sprays the bottle. And the idea behind that was he picks, this was a tip from his goalie coach was spray some water in the air, pick one droplet and follow it down because that helps you focus on the puck coming in. It helps you shut everything out and allows you just to kind of see that puck coming in. Actually, really, really smart. Got him a Stanley Cup. Curious to know, you, Travis Bridgen, regardless if you're on the bench, regardless if you're in the cage, what's going through your mind? Are you singing a song in your head? What are you thinking when the puck's at the other end of the ice?
I think that's changed a lot over the last couple of years. I think almost like I'm going to be honest, I have like really bad OCD and like ADHD sometimes. Like I'm very like squirrely. Like I bounce from like different things in my head. Like I could be like thinking about lunch, thinking about the podcast, thinking about my old lady, thinking about like all these kind of things. So like as I've gotten older and I've matured, I've found ways to kind of like dial that in a bit more. And I think like having media timeouts like this season help a lot with that. Like every 5 minutes they stop. We have like a 2-minute break, refocus, get some water, just think about it and stay focused in the game. And you can break the game into 5-minute segments, but I think helps. It makes it feel shorter. It's kind of like when you're working a real job. I know I haven't worked a real job in years, and neither has Dave. But it's like when you're 3 hours into your shift, you're hour 3, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm 1 hour away from being halfway done the day, which means I'm 4 hours away from being done. Kind of like that. Kind of makes things kind of go by a little bit faster. So I think that helps a lot. There is no singing. There is no any of that kind of stuff. Like as I've started to play like higher and higher levels and climb the ranks, I need 100% focus at all times. And I think we talked about this on an earlier episode, like closer towards the end of the summer. But doing jiu-jitsu this summer for 3 days a week really helped with kind of like bringing in that focus of like I need 45 minutes of constant focus, or like someone's going to make me look bad. So trying to stay focused, trying to like break down like little things that are happening in the game, because there's 10,000 things moving at one point in time when the puck's in my end. When the puck's at the other end, I'm trying to think, okay, what would I do if I was in the other goalie situation? Like just keep my mind engaged in the game. During the intermission, kind of like let the mind ease off, just ask myself, what does my body need, and focus less in the game. But I think that's really the only thing that I think about. I try to stay in the moment more so now that I'm older than when I was younger.
Okay, well, something else I've noticed about goaltenders over my tenure is the pre-game ritual, and I'll tell you a brief anecdote about a goaltender that I roomed with. His name was Darcy Purcell. He's actually a manager owner of a Tim Hortons out on the West Coast now, out on the island. And dude showered before games. True story.
Yeah, we got one of those guys here.
Really? Goaltender or player?
Russian, 21-year-old forward, Artem Alekin.
Interesting. Because the idea is like, well, if I want to keep my gear clean, I shower before I get into it, and then I shower after I get out of it. It was more of a gear thing. For the goaltender, I think it was just more of I need some alone time, need to warm up a little bit. This is a great way to kind of get my muscles warm. I'm going to stand under a hot shower when there's nobody else in the shower. That was kind of what I got from it. But what is do you have some quirky things that people may not understand about your pregame? And I'm talking right from the morning. We discovered last week that you like to get filtered water from Starbucks. Great. What's your game day routine?
Every morning, 9 a.m. sharp, 2 Trenta ice water cups. Actually, so Coach was actually asking me the other day, because every day, like when he comes out to the bench to set up his like practice plan, I'm stretching on the bench. And he asked me the other day, he's like, would you like me to get out of the way? And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, I know goalies are weird, and I notice you always stretch to the bench when I come out. So I don't know if you want me to leave, if like I need to stay like 12 feet away. Like, what do you need? And I was like, oh, I don't really care. I just want somewhere to stretch. And he's like, well, that's one of the more normal things I've heard from a goalie in a long time. I was like, well, I don't really have a prerequisite or anything. And funny enough, my woman, shout out to her. I got the greatest woman in the world. I talk about her every week. I'm sure people are tired of hearing about her. But one of the first things she ever told me, like when I told her that I was a goaltender, she says, aren't goalies weird? Don't you guys have like mental issues? And I said, yep, that's pretty accurate.
Yep.
And yep, 100%, par for the course. It's in the job description. It's actually a prerequisite. You have to be mentally unstable to sign up for this position. But I used to be the shower guy. I used to hop in for a nice 30-minute shower before hockey. This was also when I was playing junior.
You did it too? I did.
Now here's why I did it. I did it because I was playing junior B in Manitoba, also junior A in Ontario, which basically like same climate, same weather. And I'm coming from minus 40 outside, and I wanted to warm up, so I'd hop in the shower for 30 minutes. That was the logic behind that. And then when I went to play college at VIU, it was like plus 5 all year round, so I didn't really need to do that. When I went down to Columbus, Georgia, it was plus 20 all year round. Didn't need to do that. Sweden, same thing. Didn't ever need to do that. And here, it's not really that cold. I mean, I think it's been hovering around like plus 5-ish lately, so I don't need to do that here either. But I used to do that. But I'm not superstitious in the sense of like I have to do everything like very like strategically and organized. It's just like if I feel I need to do something, I do it. I'm a hypocrite. I just realized this. I was actually getting into it with one of the guys today in the bathroom.
Get ready, everybody! Here it comes.
I was getting into it with one of the guys on the team, Colts. He's a vet, got over 100 games in the league, and he comes in the bathroom and he says, "Trav, I'm going to chalk you up for a $1 fine this week." I said, "Why?" He's like, "You're pissing in the middle urinal. You can't just split it down the middle. Like pick a corner." And I was like, "Colts, I can't do that." I said, "Well, why not?" I was like, "I need to be in the middle urinal." And he's like, "Well, why can't you go in the corner one?" I said, "Well, I don't." He's like, "Well, what's going to happen if you do?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. I haven't found out, and I don't want to try. I have to go in the middle one." He's like, "Well, what if somebody's in the middle one?" I said, "Well, I'll just go in like the actual like stall because I can fit in there quite nicely." And he's like, "You're so weird. Just go in like the corner one." But like I have to pee in the middle urinal. That's like my thing. I can't go in like the side ones.
See, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? If I had to do a Jordan Peterson here and break down the psychology, you want to be in the center of your net. You want to know where the center of your net is, right? So if you have two corners and you know where your posts are, there are my posts. I'm right in the middle. No, seriously, you're setting up the mentality of your crease before you even get out on the ice. That's a territorial thing, 100%.
I don't know if there's like a deeper rooted problem in that, but I think that's the only really superstitious thing to do.
It's not a problem. Don't think of it as a problem. It's just habit.
Now that, you know what, Dave, I think we're making progress, because the more I think about it, the more things I'm starting to realize. I have this like bad twitch that I do on the ice, and I have to do it. I have to press my glove against my pad and then push it up against my blocker, and then I have to have it like my fingers have to be as deep in the glove as I humanly possibly can. And if I move the glove a little bit, it's like, no, I have to do it again. And it's like the guy who, like, you leave the house and then you go back and like unlock the door and relock it about 20 times before you finally are convinced, okay, I actually locked the door, and then you leave. Or you got to flick the light switch on 20 times before you leave a room. I think that's a fix I got to do.
How often do you knock your post with your stick?
Never. Don't do that. Never do that. Ever.
Interesting.
One of my friends, Callie Klang, shout out to him. I haven't talked about him in a while. He was drafted by Pittsburgh. Now he's a Ducks draft pick, or he traded to the Ducks, but playing the SHL. He has a thing where he has to step into the crease. So his skate cannot touch from the regular ice into the crease. He has to go to the crease, stop, and then step into the crease every time.
Again, I'm not going to knock any of it. I've been around it long enough. I totally get it. Totally get it. Now, here comes the big question, and I wanted to warm you up a little bit here before we got to it, but I'm going to use Sam Gagner as an example. He was a free agent signing with the Winnipeg Jets. They got him on a discount. He's a veteran. He's got a few good years left in him, but he's at a point right now where he's been promoted to the first line just because of some nagging injuries with the Winnipeg Jets. And yes, I follow the Jets because I'm in Winnipeg. But when it comes to goaltenders, that is a much more of a, again, lonely kicker situation. You're a lonely guy. You've mentioned it on the vlog before. You've mentioned it on the podcast before. But Babs, your starting goaltender, you sing his praises every time. I know you love the guy to death. And I know you say things like, I hope every guy in the SP gets injured, Bab gets called up, you get more of an opportunity to start. I totally get that. I understand. Team first. But are there situations where you think to yourself, what's the best way for me to get into the lineup?
Actually, funny enough, when I had the Burger King coupons in my pants, Babs grabbed a guy and put him in a headlock, and then all hell broke loose. And then I immediately thought, I'm like, oh, I got to go in the game again. It's a repeat of Watertown. So I get up, I get my stick, and I'm starting to loosen up. And I didn't think twice about taking the coupons out of my pants, so that could have been an issue. Babs is a feisty guy. He's got a short fuse, and at any moment, this is something that management has talked to me about, and also like I've realized is like he could snap on a guy at any point in time, so I got to be ready at all times. I enjoy watching it. It's definitely fun. There was one of the guys in Binghamton took a little bit of a dive in the first period and dropped a stick, and then he went to go pick up a stick, and Babs went and just shot a stick away, just shot it, and then the guy pushed Babs, and then Babs two-handed him once, two-handed him twice, two-handed him a third time, and the guy did nothing. But then everybody came over, and I thought, oh, here we go. I'm going to go in now. We're going to have a brawl. And so, yeah, stuff like that. Dude, Babs is crazy. Like I practice with him 5 times a week. He doesn't give up shitty goals, which is crazy because I see that. I'm like, okay, I have to do that if I want to be that good. I think the call-up situation is like, I generally hope that SP guys get injured and have a terrible season, because if they go away or get sent down somewhere else, Babs gets called up, and then I'm playing games. So I'm hoping for that on a regular basis. I would never hope for anything bad for anybody on my team, just on other teams, like in that sense. But I think one thing worth mentioning too, and I was asking myself this the other day on the drive to the rink, was like, I'm in a very similar situation as I was at VIU when I was playing college hockey. Like I was the third goalie of 4 at VIU. And I kind of self-destructed a little bit. It wasn't a great environment to be in, like as far as like the team and the culture, and our head coach was, I have some choice words for him, but it wasn't a great environment. Here is a lot different. But when you break it down, I'm in the same spot. I'm the third guy. Well, one of 3 guys, I should say. We have 2 2A, 2B goalies, and that's what management has told me. They told me a couple weeks ago is that, me and our third goalie, Blake Scott, we are equals in that sense. But I'm getting paid every week. I'm getting 125, which is like $160 Canadian with a dollar every week. So there's value. I get all my meals paid for on the road. I get my accommodations paid for. I get sticks. I get almost everything I want or could ask for. And I feel like I genuinely am valued and appreciated and respected. And I think that was something that was lacking in previous situations and setups. Like when somebody feels respected and appreciated, they'll do anything for you. You know what I mean? Like I will fill the water bottles for the guys. I will go and get guys hot dogs at the intermission if they ask for them. I will do anything my team asks me for.
Unless they're sold out.
If they're sold out, that's a problem. But if I'm respected and appreciated, I'll do anything for my team. And I really do feel respected and appreciated. And I think that's why things are working so well in Motor City, because we have like a very, very tight-knit group. Everybody's happy. Everybody's there to support each other. We got a couple guys that kind of like, they dabble outside the lines, but then we get them back in the lines and everything's all good. But
let me ask you this. You feel valued. And I mean, obviously you bringing the promotional aspect of the vlog and the podcast and all the things that you do. The Fed's expanding. The Fed's expanding with a couple more teams next year. Do you look at that as an opportunity to go, you know what, as much as I love it in Motor City, I mean, is it in the back of your head thinking there could be an opportunity to be a starter?
Yeah. I don't know if we should talk about this in the podcast, but we're going to do it anyway because this will never go up on the vlog. And that's one of the perks of listening to this podcast is I tell you things I will not tell you in the vlog. Because the vlog, honest to God, this is a good problem to have. The vlog gets too many views right now. The whole league, the whole SP, everybody's watching. Every time we warm up with another team, guys come up to me and warm up, like, love the vlog, great video, this. So it's getting too many views on YouTube. The podcast, though, does not. So I'll tell you this in the podcast. I was always raised by my dad to be loyal to those that are good to me. Like for example, like the VIU situation when I was playing college hockey, I felt like I was treated like shit by our head coach. I remember when our head coach would tell me, you're never going to play at the college level because you suck. I remember our goalie coach shitting on me on a daily basis, telling me like, you're not good enough, this, that, and the other. They just tell me all these like negative, prophesizing words that would like send me down that path of failure, if that makes sense. And like, because of that, I never felt any loyalty towards the team, towards the school, towards any, like when the first opportunity came to bounce and try to go somewhere else, I was like, see you later. And that's when I, ended up taking the tryout with the U of M Bisons for U Sport hockey. But here with Motor City, realistically breaking it down, the goalie market is really tough. Every team in the league has 4 goalies. We have 3. By default, this is a significantly better situation. The pedigrees of goalies coming into the league on a week-to-week basis is getting better, and I'm still here. So all those things lead me to believe that the team, at least from the management side, they appreciate me and they want to have me around. And I'll be honest too, like our GM Nick Field, shout out to him. I hope this doesn't make it back to his desk, but when he signed me over the summer, he was like very like persistent about like trying to get me signed. Like when he called me the first time, like he wanted me to sign, and he was knocking down my door for a couple of days and I'm like, come on, let's get it done. So the fact that he was willing to reach out and want to sign me when realistically speaking, nobody else did at that point in time. Like, I will forever be loyal and forever be indebted to him, and I want to play for the Motor City Rockers just because of that. If things went south, okay, that's a different situation, but I'm loyal to the team. I'm loyal especially to him, and I see myself as a Motor City Rocker. So the way the expansion teams work, if you don't know, so for the Fed, like we mentioned earlier, teams leave, teams come, they go, and whatnot every single year. When expansion teams come in, there's an expansion draft. Every team can protect certain players and they leave other ones unprotected, and the new teams can just pick whoever they want. So in theory, if they didn't protect me, because if we're being honest, they're going to protect Babs before they protect me, I would be unprotected and somebody could take me. So if one of the 2 new expansion teams next year take me, then I'm a part of the new team. So I'm not going to rule that out, because that would be, I guess, the same thing of like Motor City obviously wants to protect Babs. They see more value in him than me, and that's totally understandable and understandably so. The new team, the new expansion team saw value in me. They wanted to pick me up. Now I'm loyal to them. So I've always been raised to be loyal to those that are good to me 10 times. And that's something my dad preached to me from like when I was 5 years old. And I still believe in it. And I always will be like that.
I don't disagree with you at all. But I think what your father was trying to tell you was you got to be loyal to yourself first. You got to look out for number one. And I'm not trying to talk you out of it. But I think we've seen over the course of the last 16 episodes, people want to see you in the net. People want to see you start. People want to see you play. If you believe that you're good enough to be a starter, then let the chips fall where they may.
I agree, and that's another saying my dad always says: "Let the chips fall where they may." I'll say this again because the vlog is getting too many views on the podcast. Well, the podcast is growing a lot actually recently, getting like 5,000 to 6,000 downloads every single or listens every single episode. But
by the way, leave a rating and review if you get a chance. If you're listening on the podcast, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
No matter which platform you're listening to, we are happy to have you. But here's what I will say. As a team, we agree that we collectively have the deepest goaltending in the league, which based on pedigree would be false. There are teams with goaltending pedigrees way better than ours. But a pedigree doesn't get you results. Like, we have the best goalie in the league, and I watch him every single day. If you try to show me a better goalie than Babs in the league, I will show you a liar. Like, that's how firmly I believe he's the best goalie in the league. Like, we played Binghamton this weekend, and they had a guy that just dropped down from the SP, and the guy played. And honest to God, the guy couldn't stop a beach ball. The guy's letting in ice burners from the blue line 5-hole with no traffic. Like, I'm looking at some of the goalies in the league, and every single goal that we have played in the league up to this date, up to this point in time, and I think to myself, if I was anywhere but Motor City, I feel like I could have a really, really good opportunity to play a lot of games and be a starter, because I do believe, even though I've only played 44 minutes of this moment of time, I believe that I can succeed at this level. I think if I got 5 games, I can get some confidence going and kind of start playing, because we can't really make a game plan with 44 minutes of game experience over like 2 months, right? Like, if we start playing some games, like me and, obviously goalie coach Bill now, but whoever the goalie coach would be with a different team, we could start getting a game plan together and start actually like getting somewhere. But you can't do that when you're not playing. And looking at some of the goaltenders like around the league, it's like, man, like I could play games for these guys, but that's not the situation. The situation is I'm a Motor City Rocker. I signed with the team. I'm happy with the team. I understand I have to put in my time as well. Like, it's not just going to be like hey, I'm going to play games. Well, guess what? Everybody wants to play games, right? The sky is also blue. The earth is also flat, right?
Wow. Wow. Have you been talking to my wife?
Possibly.
My wife is a aspiring flat earther. She wants to believe it so bad. She's really, and listen, just to get back to this, I'm not trying to talk you out of the Motor City Rockers. I got a hat on the way that I'm looking forward to sporting very proudly. But I was just trying to dig into the whole psychology of a goaltender. And the idea is that you want to play. You absolutely want to play. We have seen more than enough players that are kind of on the bubble in between the NHL, AHL, AHL, all the way down to ECHL, SP, whatever. You're on the bubble. You're in between. And if you're not getting the time that you want, that you think you deserve, where you should be, then you're going to look elsewhere. So I'm just trying to get into the psychology of a goaltender saying, if I'm not in the cage every other night or every night or whatever it may be, where does your head lie? And I'm glad we figured that out a little bit. Loyalty is great. Absolutely. These guys gave you a shot. And I praise them because I have been telling people here in Winnipeg, you got to check out the Motor City Rockers. Watch the game on YouTube last week. I'm pumping it up as much as I can. I'm as big of a fan that you'll find outside of that city more than anyone else. But my priority is you.
No. Well, here's the thing, too, worth mentioning. I'm loyal to the Motor City Rockers, but I also want to play. Right? Like, if I play the next 10 years for Motor City and played 10 games, like, I want to play games. I also, at the same time, I understand the reality of the market and that it's going to be tough to find an opportunity anywhere else. Like, nobody's going to be trading for me anytime soon. If I'm not with Motor City, I'm getting released and have nowhere to play. So I'm thankful for the opportunity they gave me, and I want to make the most of that. That's getting better practice every day. Watching Babs, like, I'm getting better watching Babs every single day. It's nuts. I also think too that, like, as the vlog grows and like people are watching, people are talking, as an expansion team comes, maybe that's something that they talk about where there's an opportunity. But for the time being, like, I play for Motor City. I love being here. And I think, too, like, hot take, a little bit of struggle is good. Like, I'm not getting in the net. It makes me horny for it. It makes me hot and hungry. I want to play games. It makes me work that much harder. And it makes me think critically. Like, every day of practice, I'm like, I haven't played a minute of real game action in about 3.5 weeks. And it's probably going to be another 2-3 weeks more. What can I do to be game ready? And I'm critically thinking all the time, right? Like, in every... I just think it is part of the overall end goal, and it's something positive is going to come of it. Like, I'm not like super religious or any religious at all by any means. I do believe there is like a greater power out there, and I think that greater
doesn't mean you can't be spiritual.
Yeah, spiritual. Sorry. So I believe whatever power out there, God, whatever he is, whatever is, there's a game plan to this, and I think that having me on the bench, having me practicing, working hard, earning my time, and establishing myself in the league as a guy who can stick around, the team's not going to get rid of me, even if I am a backup, whatever. there is a game plan to it, and it's going to result in something positive. It may not be this week. It may not even be this season. It might be next year, but whatever the case is, I'm going to be playing hockey for a long time, at least for a couple more years. I love doing what I do, and I have the patience to stick around and see the process out. I think that's the big key.
Speaking of game plans, gentlemen, before you go out on a date, you have to have a game plan.
Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. Obviously, we have to bend some rules here to fit it in the podcast programming so it fits in between the lines. I heard a story the other day from around the league in the Fedzino. Now, I'm not going to say what team. Lots of guys from around the league do send messages. But there's a story that after a game with one of the teams, one of the road teams, one of the guys, a little bit frisky, he ends up bringing a lady back to the arena and in one of the public washrooms has a good time. I'm going to leave it at that. If you are going to be that guy who's going to go to town and lay the boots, do the boot, scoot, and boogie in one of the public washrooms in the main concourse outside of the hot dog stand, you are probably going to want to knock it down a notch or two, maybe even three, with the folks at Manscaped.com, the second presenting sponsor for the podcast here. The Lawnmower 4 has skin-safe technology, so if you want to trim the port area of your wiener, I don't know if I'm allowed to say wiener on the podcast, but I said it. If you want to trim the forearms, you want to trim your shins, your legs, whatever the case may be, skin-safe technology is easy. There's no razor burn. It's smooth. The Lawnmower 4 comes with a 90-minute battery life, so unless you're a gorilla, you're going to have everything done, everything you need to do in about a 90-minute, well, probably even a 45-minute period. If you're hairy like Dave, maybe it might take closer to 90 minutes. But the team at Manscaped got you covered with the best in the business. It is waterproof. The skin-safe technology is awesome. You can use it in the shower. It's got a flashlight, so if you have like a dark shower, or maybe if you're trying to like trim yourself in a cave, or like maybe on a team bus on a 10-hour trip to Binghamton, and you're like, hey, you know what? I have a bush. I need to trim. It's got a flashlight, so you can do that. I wouldn't do that to the team bus because that's a fine.
Listen, that is the big thing I wanted to bring up, because I'm not going to lie to you. Used it recently and thought to myself, it is so much easier finding those little tiny annoying little follicles with a flashlight on it. It's brilliant. I just thought it was there to tell you when the battery was done. No, that thing is awesome.
And you can turn it on and or off. So if you want to save some more battery, you can turn the flashlight off. If you need it and it's dark out, maybe you're shaving in a bat cave, you can turn it on. You're ready to roll. And if you want to pick
Batman.
If you want to pick up the Lawnmower 4 from the team at Manscaped.com, there's a link in the description, and the code is BIZKIT, BIZKIT. It's going to get you 20% off and free shipping. Dave Wheeler will ship any and all orders with a smile on his face. He'll slap you on the ass on the way out the door, and we can get you covered with the up-to-date Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. The team at Manscaped.com.
You pay me enough, I'll deliver it by hand.
We'll have to work that into the next contract. Our contract is up end of December for Sheath and Manscaped, so on the next one we'll have to mention that.
Let's go.
Yeah. Speaking of going, one thing I wanted to mention was when we got picked up for a bus trip the other day, the bus driver loops around the parking lot, leaves, and then we noticed that she was doing laps around Detroit. I think she did like a good solid lap around Detroit, came back to the rink, did a lap around the parking lot, then came out again. And the guys were like, it's like 1 a.m. Why is she doing laps around Detroit? And then I said to the fellas, I said, guys, she's paid hourly, not salary. She's trying to bump up the wages here. But it got me thinking, we do these long bus trips, like for example, to Columbus, Georgia. I'm told it is 16 hours. Mississippi, Carolina, same thing. The New York ones are all 10 to 11 hour trips. Some are 8. And it made me think, everybody talks about bus trips. Everybody does bus trips. They're tight. They're crammed. I'm a travel vet. I love traveling. I do a lot of traveling with flying, trains, all that kind of stuff. And it made me think, the original 6 travel by train for all their games. Now, keep in mind, this is going from Toronto to Chicago to Detroit to all the original hubs. But I asked one of the guys the other day, I said, what if we just travel by train? We relocate a couple teams over the next few years to more main hubs, so it's more train accessible with Amtrak or whatever the case is. And we just travel by train. We could stretch out, stretch the legs, not be tight in crammed buses, get meals, everything. I thought that was an interesting idea, interesting concept.
I would like to shout out all of the A, professional drivers out there, and B, all of the female professional drivers out there, because for those that heard it right, yeah, you guys got a female bus driver, and I think that's incredible. There's not enough of that in the industry, and don't take the stereotypes to heart. Danica Patrick, perfect example. She's one of the few, but it's possible, and God love you for doing it. Do you know her name?
I don't know. I know she was FaceTiming a lot in the bus ride. She was driving and she was on FaceTime at the same time. And I remember walking up to the front of the bus 3 a.m. thinking,
That's a little sketchy.
I don't know if I feel comfortable with this. Maybe you should put it on the phone, ma'am.
All right, maybe I take it back.
It's an insurance
God love
liability.
you. God love all of you. God love all the professional drivers out there and anyone driving around listening to the pod right now.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter what you drive, if you drive a Ram, a Ford, an Audi, whatever you drive, we're happy to be in your car stereo at this moment.
By the way, are you capable of driving a manual transmission?
No, it would get
Really?
stuck in the park. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I challenge you, sir. Fun fact, Daniel Craig, who was the most recent incarnation of the James Bond that we know and love, we watched him scoot around all parts of Europe and whatnot, driving a Aston Martin or in all the beautiful vehicles that they make out in that area, in real life, cannot drive a manual transmission. I challenge you to learn how to drive a manual.
You know, I haven't owned a vehicle in about 2 years. And last year in Sweden with the boss man, shout out to the boss man. He still texts me, watches the vlog.
That was your old billet?
That's my bill. That was the dude in the Hugh Hefner robe with a different girl for every day of the week. He was a beauty. At 52 years old, God bless him. I miss him a lot. But he had 2 cars. He had an old beat up 98 manual car, and he had the brand new Audi A6 that was automatic. And he gave me the Audi A6 to drive whenever I wanted because I couldn't drive manual. What a selfless guy. Give me his Audi to drive.
What a guy!
Now I have a bike.
Hey, can I give a YouTube exclusive? Anyone that's watching this on YouTube right now, and if anyone's listening on the podcast, you won't be able to see this. But can I show you something that I did today? Can
Absolutely.
I show you? And you can only see this. This is only a visual thing. Oh,
did you do what I think you did?
You're gonna love this. You ready?
Okay, he's doing the Dirt Diggler. Here we go. No, you did not.
I did. I've been wanting to do it forever.
Is that real or is that fake?
No,
is
that's
that
100% real. Got it done
it's
today.
A real tattoo.
My boy Ryan Street at Steel and Ink Tattoo at Polo Park in Winnipeg. I called him up and I said, it's going to be a quick one. It's not going to be a long one. Are you up for doing it? And he said, yep. And I've been carrying around that idea ever since I put that number on my back.
And when was that?
Oh, geez. 30 years ago.
So that was when both eyes worked, not just one?
Yes. Thank you, Travis. Thank you. Let's make a Cyclops joke before we go.
Hey, and even if you are a Cyclops, this podcast drops every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Apple, Spotify, the YouTube version as well. And as well, 10 a.m. in Winnipeg, 9 a.m. in Calgary, 8 a.m. on the West Coast, San Francisco, Vancouver, the whole West Coast strip. It also goes at 4 p.m. in Sweden, 3 p.m. in the UK, 5 p.m. in Finland, and 11 p.m. in China and Australia. I want to say thank you very much to everybody for listening. It is awesome just how much the podcast has been growing explosively the past couple weeks. So we have almost quadrupled the audience since me and Dave rebooted the podcast back in July. I got to say it. I say it every week, and I can't hound it home enough. When we rebooted the podcast, I was genuinely afraid the podcast was not going to work. And the fact that it has just exploded and taken off ever since then is mind-boggling. So the people on TikTok that have found the podcast on TikTok, you have no idea who I am. Thank you. It's awesome to have you.
What the hell is a TikTok?
Dave's not on social media, but I do post the clips on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok and you found the podcast that way, thank you. If you're just coming off of the brand new Sunday travel vlog in Binghamton and you listen to this podcast, thank you. No matter what way you found it, it is a privilege to do this podcast with you. It's my favorite thing to do every week.
The hell is a Binghamton?
The Binghamton Black Bears. And this week we play the Danbury Hat-Tricks. But we'll talk about that on the next episode of the podcast, joined by my amazing co-host, Mr. Dave Wheeler. Please take us home with the final word.
Go subscribe to the vlog. Go check it out if you haven't yet. Trav 4. Is it still Trav 4 Oilers or is it just Trav 4 now?
I just put it down to Trav, yeah. And if you want to listen to Dave's morning radio show, Energy 106, there's a podcast version as well in Winnipeg, and we will see you next Sunday.